evening and a very warm welcome to the Scotch India Law Forum and Literature Festival. I'm not quite sure how to introduce a man who needs no introduction, therefore I won't. I will read an excerpt from a poem that he wrote called Past, Present, and Future. Footprints of history are yesterdays gone by. Memories linger as milestones until we say goodbye. Thoughts are pauses, commas of a present on the move. No future lies without a past with which it is suffused. The era was pre-independence. The place was Lahore. A lawyer with great love for literature, art, and culture was approached by a group of writers deeply upset by the restrictions on Urdu writings to defend one of their kin. The reason Nanak Chand Naz, editor of a daily newspaper Prabhat, had taken great exception and raised serious objections to a poet's writings. The lawyer promptly accepted and appeared for the playwright. The lawyer asked the editor, "What word do you object to?" "Ashik," Naz replied. "So what could we change it to?" the lawyer asked. "Would you be okay with the word yard?" Naz fell silent, but the magistrate smiled. The playwright was none other than Sadat Hasan Manto, the lawyer, the great late Shri Hiralal Sibal. Mr. Kapil Sibal, did you inherit a love for literature, culture, and art from your father?
Absolutely, without any doubt. Actually, in my younger days, I still remember as a kid, when I went back from college while I was in St. Stephen's, whenever I went back, several evenings was spent just by reciting Ghalib, Iqbal, Faiz, Ahmad Faiz, any number of poets. So, we've been brought out in that culture, and it's just not limited to Urdu poetry. It was my brothers were, our encyclopedias in English literature, and the poetry of great poets of the past. So I've been bred in that culture, and I grew up in that.
Mr. Sibal, you write in your poem, Mother's Love. I nurtured you for many months, and when you came, I saw my love encased in molded flesh, beauty naked and raw. You battled with the soft terrain, feeling your way about, quickly learning to feed and rest the world within your mouth. Mr. Sibal, not many people may know this, but you were still in your mother's womb during the partition exodus when she took the train. Your father took up the position of a prison guard on his arrival. You were no stranger to hardship in your early years.
That's true. Absolutely true. My father was left with nothing. We were refugees. And then he moved on to Shimla. And he hardly had any money. So I think he rented some office space for about 5 rupees a month, and in a hotel. And he associated himself with another lawyer, whose son is also a great friend of mine. And he started life afresh after having served in refugee camps. And incidentally, he always wanted, he was a student of mathematics. And then unfortunately he got typhoid, he couldn't complete his course. So at that time there was a course of 2 years in law. He decided to do law, and that's how he became a lawyer. So he was fairly successful at Lahore, but then he lost everything, and we started life afresh. And I still remember I used to walk a mile and a half to reach school every morning. We used to come back. We hardly had any place to live in. That's how it was.
It couldn't have been easy for you to come up the way you did, Mr. Sibal. In your poem, Vibe, you write, "The resonance of words connects us to each other. The resonance of feelings is what brings us together." Mr. Sibal, you've always had a way with words. What some might describe being mischievous. As a child, you once answered a general knowledge test by writing, "Jab dil hi toot gaya, to ji ke kya karenge?"
That's true. That's when I was in St. Stephen's, we used to have a test, and I was part of Cooler Talk. So every time you'd had a test of general knowledge, they'd ask these questions. Have you heard of CP snow? And I said, look, I've never seen snow in CP. so I used to say, जब दिल्ली टूट गया तो जी के क्या करें? So yeah, we had a lot of fun. Life is a melody. Life is a melody, and you have to take it like that. You can't be pulled down. Of course, it has its ups and downs, but the question is, the moments you have, you'll never get them back again. So you must cherish whatever moments you have. You can't wallow in the past because the past is dead, right? You have to look to the future, and the future of those who are yet who have a future of those who have a future. We are in the evening of our life, so we have to think of those who are going to, be part of this great nation for the next 30, 40, 50 years. And we have to think of them. And we must have hope on the basis of which we move forward. We cannot despair. I mean, we lost everything. We lost everything in Pakistan, but I don't wallow in the tragedy that afflicted us. I don't wallow in that. I have no anger, no enmity, no hatred for anyone, because there's no point in that. And why should I blame people today for what happened to us 60, 70 years ago, 80 years ago? Why should I blame others for those who have nothing to do with what happened to us? See, hatred is an easy way to justify any act to yourself. That's the easiest way. But the consequences of hatred are disastrous to society. Therefore, always shun it. The most important emotion in life is love.
Sure.
Love for a child, love for a father, love for a wife, love for society, love for doing the right thing, love for bringing a smile on somebody's face. That's the only way you can live.
Sir, speaking of love, you found your first love in university. You write in your poem, An Unscripted Path, let virgin thoughts burst forth and bloom in artful ways unknown thus far. Vast galaxies of fertile space will help produce our global stars. You've gone on the record and said, creativity is the heart of all progress, and creativity comes to the education system, which will allow the genius of the child to flower as he moves into the university system, to allow them the freedom to think. Your love for creative art and theatre made you meet the first love of your life, the late Mrs. Nina Sibal. During the rehearsals of Julius Caesar, she was studying English literature at Miranda House and had played the role of California. You went on different paths in 1972. She accepted the offer to join the Indian Foreign Service, and you chose an unscripted path.
That's right. I've always done that. I've always done what my heart tells me to do, not my mind. I apply my mind afterwards. That's always been the case. And I never wanted to be, bogged down by going to office at 10 o'clock and coming back at 5 o'clock or 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock, and then being, somebody else being my boss. I wanted to live my life on my own terms. I've always done it, not on somebody else's terms.
Speaking of living life on your own terms, Mr. Sibal, not many people know this, but your way with words and your love for theatre wasn't the only highlight of your youth. In your poem, This is Cricket, you write, one day a beloved leader had a disturbing dream, was called upon to play for the Indian cricket team, expressed his no confidence, appealed on every ball, did all he could to influence the third umpire's call. Such leaders are of a rare breed. We value not their worth, must look out for technologies to help us cite them at birth. Mr. Sibal, unlike the leader in this poem, you were quite the athlete in your youth. In fact, you won several trophies for cricket as well as tennis.
Not tennis. I was the best athlete of my school. And I, as a young man, as a young boy, I was obsessed with sports. So I happened to be the cricket captain, the hockey captain, the football captain. But I left it all. And when I joined college, I went to theatre. And then I did a lot of theatre in the university. I acted in several significant plays in St. Stephen's. And I also directed plays of St. Stephen's College. And of course, in Delhi University, whether it was Delhi School of Economics or Miranda House or Lady Urban College, I used to, lot of theatre. Of course, my colleagues at that time were Kabir Bedi, Siddharth Kak, Benjamin Gilani. So they all were very, very keen on joining Bollywood, but they tried to sort of persuade me to do that. But I sort of kept my ground because I was not interested in making that as a career.
I believe you also once directed a play on Che Guevara.
Yes, that's right. Che Guevara by Mario Fratti in the Delhi School of Economics. And Pankaj Tandon was the lead actor, who of course now is in the MIT as a professor of the MIT, a great economist. And we had great fun. But the government of India was very angry with me for doing that. That time it was the Congress government.
Mr. Sibal, you might have made some excellent friendships along the way.
Yes.
You wrote a touching poem. It was called A Friend Who Passed Away. When last I rang, the phone was out. Tried reaching you, but just could not. I never knew that you had gone. Never let out why things went wrong. Called up to hear the voice I knew, to find out how things were with you. You were alone with none to care. Relentless fate had not been fair.
This is a German friend of mine who was my colleague at the firm I used to practice in New York called Kohl and Dietz. It's a small firm, about 40, 50 lawyers. And he was a German friend, and his mother had migrated after the Nazis, were defeated. And she migrated to the United States of America. Of course, then she married her husband, of course, went back, was still there in Germany. So my friend was alienated from his German father. And he used to discuss with me, the father did not even react to him when he went to see him. And then he didn't somehow get married. And every lawyer in the law firm in the US wants to be a partner. So he somehow didn't become a partner. And so he was very depressed, and ultimately he died of a heart attack because he had become fat, he was frustrated. But his greatest joy was watching the German football team in the Olympics and the World Cup. And that gave him a high. And that's how he lived. But I felt very sad when he died. He's a very great friend of mine. So I wrote a little poem on him.
Not only this, Mr. Sibal, your friend had once cared for you when you had hepatitis C.
That's correct.
In your heart and soul, you were only returning towards the kindness that he showed.
That's right. I almost passed away at that young age. I had hepatitis C, and the doctors had already almost given me up. And then he came one day, and he, for 1 hour, he massaged my shoulder. And I got okay. That's how it was.
It couldn't have been easy. It couldn't have been easy achieving the scales of success that you did, sir. You came back to India and you wrote a poem called Rat Race. Was I born to lose this race that I was born to run? Or is it that no one will win, no matter how well we run? Mr. Sibal, your father's practice was primarily in the Punjab and Haryana High Court. In Delhi, you broke through on your own and earned a name for yourself as a doyen of the bar.
Yeah, I was lucky. I must say that, lots of lawyers, I think, are far more competent than I, but unfortunately, luck is not favored them. I was lucky, but I decided to do everything on my own. I never worked with any lawyers in my life, never. And I never filed a wakalatnama in my life. I decided that I would be an arguing counsel. And I started my career with 300 rupees. I used to pay 30 rupees to the clerk. And then, of course, the advocate and record had to be paid. So another 70 rupees to the advocate and record. And 200 rupees, I used to draft everything, argue the case, and go right up to the Supreme Court doing that. That's how it all started. And I was a briefless lawyer. I knew nobody. I never asked my father ever to help me. Never. And it just so happened. I was lucky. And I had great friends amongst the legal fraternity.
Mr. Sibal, what you might call luck, others might call sheer hard work, determination, and force of will. Not only this, you never helped your sons either. In fact, you refused to teach them how to draft, and you were keen on them making it on their own in the profession.
Yeah. I told them, I said, look, first of all, I have never assigned a case to them from my chamber. I don't know what they're doing, what cases they do. I've never kept them as a junior in any of my cases. I've never told a client that you give this brief to either of my sons. I have never sent them a brief. That's the other thing. And when I was minister in the government for 10 years, every department I was in, I called them up immediately and said, whatever matters you are doing, whether it's in telecom when I was telecom minister or education when I was in HRD, that you must return those briefs. And they returned them immediately. And in fact, my wife used to say, why are you punishing them for your principles? I said, no, it's not punishment. That's how it should be.
So I believe these principles that you stand for, these morals, these values, and these ethics have gone a long way, not just in your career, but also your sons' careers. From being a briefless lawyer to reaching the heights of your career is best described perhaps by a poem called Summing Up. Young budding star, a sheer delight, embarking on a virgin flight, where syllables are strung in words, which older folks behave like nerds. Seeks life beyond his comfort zone, explores the world, but not alone. Senses he is in full command, satisfaction on demand. Tests waters for approving nods, triumphant as we all applaud. Mr. Sibal, your 5 hour defense of Justice Ramaswamy in the parliamentary impeachment proceedings is the stuff of legend. During the proceedings, you said, and I quote, I appeared today certainly for the judge, but more for the institution. The judge may be removed or may not be removed. It is not of my concern. I am concerned with the fallout of the vote. After the case, you could not go out of your home for a quiet meal with your family because people would flock to congratulate you. This was perhaps your first transition to public fandom and public life.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And that again was luck. I'm telling you, that's the truth. It was luck. And I tell you why it was luck.
Our speech was luck.
No, not the speech. That how I reached Parliament to make that speech was luck. Luck because the judge asked me to do the case. He could have asked any number of senior lawyers to do the case, right? And then the opposition of stalwarts at the bar to my representing the judge resulted in my not being heard in any proceeding in the Supreme Court while the matter was pending in Supreme Court in one form or another. And then when I told the Constitution bench, look, this, it's fine, all this is fine, you're not hearing me, but at some stage I should be heard. And then the Constitution bench said to me, well, surely Parliament will hear you. I said, why will they hear me? He said, no, we'll make sure that Parliament hears you. And so they passed an order saying that the judge is entitled to a defense. That's how I reached Parliament. That was luck. My speech was not luck, but that journey was luck, was fate.
Mr. Sibal, some might also argue that Justice Ramaswamy had the opportunity to see you when you were defending his father-in-law.
That's true. That's true. That's true. But that's all right. He could have chosen, there were lawyers of great standing and 20 years older than me who were not asked to represent him.
Sir, you've always been in the thick of things. You were the Supreme Court Bar Association president for 3 terms, which some might argue is more difficult than winning a Lok Sabha seat.
It's true. It's true. Because each lawyer has an opinion of his own.
And no one is willing to vote for the other.
That's correct.
In your poem, Riding Dangerously, sir, you write, politics, an unruly horse, canters and trots, all in due course. Reining in the horse takes time and more. For years you stand outside the door. If you wait for your turn to come, well thought out plans will be undone. Mr. Sibal, Your decision to enter politics could not have been an easy one.
It was luck again. I have to tell you that. See, I had no desire to be in politics. It's when I defended Ramaswamy, and Narasimha Rao was the Prime Minister then, and he watched me. In the Lok Sabha elections in 1996, he called me up and said that you fight the election from South Delhi. And he gave me just about 10 days time. I said, look, I am a lawyer. I'm not a politician. He said, no, you have to fight the election. I said, Sushma Swaraj is on the other side. I will lose hands down. He said, yeah, you will lose, but you fight. He pushed me into politics. I never wanted to be there.
Was your family supportive of your decision to enter politics?
My family is always supportive to my decisions. I know we all support each other, big time. And we give great independence. We never interfere in each other's lives. My wife has been a great support to
me. Mr. Sibal, while some might use this as a platform for serving oneself, you chose to always fight for the underdog. In fact, your practice is marked with pro bono cases. And you famously tell your sons that if you ever have a paid client and a pro bono one, make it a point to attend the pro bono matter. You write in your poem, Empower Me, I do believe that I must be, charter my own lost destiny, feel free within imprisoned walls. My spirit soars, my body crawls, corrupted, used, deprived, enslaved, committed, thus am to the grave, and yet I seek to turn the tide, to swim across the other side. Mr. Sibal, perhaps very few people know this, but in fact, when you were a sitting Rajya Sabha MP, a Nigerian lady, Helen Anyanwu, walked into your home and asked for help. A 6-year-old daughter had been assaulted by the neighbor's son, and she was being oppressed and harassed by the powerful people who did it. You instinctively said yes, accepted the case, and fought for her rights.
That's true. That's true. And she was in great difficulty throughout her life, and I helped her in many other ways as well. I didn't know, but she needed help.
That comes with special.
I was not the one to say no.
She
couldn't educate her kids also. So I helped her there as well. That's the way it is. She wrote me a very sweet letter from Nigeria. She's, of course, I think, passed away now.
Sir, this is not an isolated incident of your compassionate and kind nature when it comes to other people. I think it was your son, your elder son, Amit, when he had won a scholarship to Harvard and the next candidate hadn't gotten one, you silently paid his tuition fees?
I did. He needed money, an opportunity to go to Harvard. I couldn't sort of stop.
This truly is emblematic of my world within, isn't it, Mr. Sibal? You know, people oftentimes don't talk about the good that they do. And you perhaps never do. There is so much information about you in the public domain, yet very few people know these things about you, sir.
Yeah, but I don't think these should remain within me. I mean, I don't know how it's in the public domain.
I think it's inspirational to share with the world.
That's very kind of you. Yeah, but this is a journey that we are on it. All of us have a journey. This is a one-time journey, and it's a one-way street. This is not a two-way street. So if along that journey you can help somebody, ensure that he has a smile on his face, what's wrong with it? I think that's the greatest thing that you can do.
It is indeed, sir. And as the elders say, "Neki kar darya mein dal."
Yeah, I don't know. It's just emotively, I want to help people. Emotively, and I never expect anything in return. Never.
So you've also always been deeply passionate about the education system and the nation's youth.
Yeah.
You write in your poem, "Allow Me to Run," Please rid me of this awful load preparing for the class 10 board. My thirsty mind craves to create, not have exams decide my fate. My curious mind yearns to explore much beyond my classroom doors. My dreams should not be cut to size because I hate to memorize. Solving a sum will not help find real answers for a questioning mind. Create the space for me to run. Let learning be a lot of fun. You were always deeply passionate about a child or an individual being able to express his creativity and find himself. You were a strong believer also of the potential of India's demographic dividend. Not only did you effect large scale education reform during your term in the HRD ministry, you also gave the nation the eighth fundamental right, the right to education, Mr. Sibal. In fact, you were the chairman of the drafting committee when the right to education bill was being formulated and you pushed it through as HRD minister.
At that time, Arjun Singh Ji was the minister for HRD, and I was made chairman of that group, and I then formulated the law, and then when I became minister, again a matter of luck. I became a minister. I then implemented that law. But I'm passionate about kids. Because the kids are the future of this country. You know, if you don't invest in your children, remember, your investment in your kid is a capital investment, in education is a capital investment, the returns of which are far beyond any investment of capital in an industry. Far beyond. And our country doesn't understand that. And I'm sorry to say my own party was opposed to it. Many of them were opposed to it. The opposition was opposed to it. Many of the education reforms I did were with this intent to free children of this, you know, the idea of having to go to a classroom and regurgitating all that is in the textbook is nothing to do with education. Education is not found in textbooks. It is found, the textbook is just the beginning of a journey. And if you don't go through that journey, you've learned nothing. You're uneducated. You may be literate, but you're not educated. Education is something far different from literacy.
Mr. Sibal, when you went in with the motivation to change the system and you went in with optimism and enthusiasm, you said you found your fair share of detractors, people who were unwilling to believe or let you do what needed to be done. How did you manage to convince them?
I don't know. Actually, the Prime Minister, Dr. Manmohan Singh, was very, very supportive of me in everything that I did. And so I'm really grateful to him. He allowed me to do things that, or to push things that otherwise would not have carried through. So I'm really grateful to him. And I had no previous association with him. None whatsoever.
Mr. Sibal, is it true that you went to people's houses in the middle of the night to convince them that education reform was the need of the hour?
Yes, that's true. Many of them. And then luckily they ultimately supported me. Even forget about just this education. See these quotas that people have now. Ministers have quotas for Kendriya Vidyalayas. I try to get rid of all that. There's so much opposition. I could have, given admission to 1,200, 1,500 people without any questions being asked. And I said, as a minister, how do I exercise that discretion? Ultimately, what will happen is those who know me will come to me and then I'll appoint their kid. I will give admission to their kids. But what about millions outside who have no access to me? Why should I have a quota? But, Parliament was opposed to it. And now thousands, you have quota of thousands. Luckily, this year, I think this government is sought to remove it. But for years, 4,000, 5,000 children being given admission on the basis of the minister. The problem with this country is that it is only politics that matters. The nation comes afterwards.
Mr. Sibal, you always had a strong disdain for hierarchy. In fact, once upon a time, when you were being housed at the Oberoi Cecil and your friend, one Mr. Lahiri, was being asked to stay at a not so nice property, you made it a point that he shared the suite with you. In fact, it also was part of your decision to not join the civil services.
That's absolutely right. I said, how can you just send him somewhere? So we shared the suite. And of course, question of joining this civil service didn't arise at all. I mean, I don't want to be a cog in the wheel. And that also a manipulated cog. I don't want to do that.
Mr. Sibal, over the years, you've experienced personal loss. You wrote a poem that perhaps came from a place of pain, God unkind, when you strike with lethal force and slice the leaves of budding lives to leave a trail of shattered dreams, where wastelands of despair survive, your artful ways paralyze the lives of those who need you most. Distraught, they seek deliverance. Each passing day, death is their host. You haven't moved mountains for me, nor witness to what you can. Will gift instead unplanned graveyards, the world for me, lifeless, still. Mr.
That's
Sibal,
true. You know, I lost my wife of cancer. And these were very, very difficult moments. There was a time when I had to be the doctor myself because she wouldn't allow a nurse to be near her. So I would, in fact, administer injections to her. I learned how to give injections. I did everything for her. And I felt bad for my kids. But you have to move on. You can't just sort of, as I said, you can't just give up life when a part of it moves away from you. So you have to move on. I did that, and I have a wonderful wife now who takes care of me.
you do indeed, sir. In fact, in your poem, Wifely Muse, you write, Sweetheart, do keep your evening free. Last time I called your secretary, was curtly informed that it would take some time before you took a break. At other times, wait patiently. You're off to your constituency. When you return past dinner time, in that melee, lost track of time. I understand that busy men seldom get home till after 10. By then, I feel nothing is right, losing out on my appetite. When last you did get dressed to go to watch with me the latest show, I saw a crowd stand by the gate. Yet once again, they sealed my fate. I always wait, stand in the queue. I want to be in front of you. Hope for a chance to lead the way so that I too might have a say. What I have said, perhaps not new, and yet I can't stop loving you. Mrs. Promila Sibal is your muse and sounding
True.
board. She
True.
often corrects your rhyme and meter and censors the unprintable. Is she also a fan of your Pan Asian cooking?
No, actually, I've sort of given up on my Pan Asian cooking for a long time now. But I love cooking, but she's an absolutely unbeatable cook. I mean, she's a maestro. So I've lost that battle, lost that. So I've conceded that you are too good. I cannot compete with you. But yes, I love cooking. I used to do a lot of it at one time.
Mr. Sibal, I think it's the people who came from the partition. I saw it with my own grandparents. They have this incredible zest for life. You wrote this poem called Move On. How many battles can you fight? And the one within, with all your might. How many conquests will you make? You just need one for your own sake. Rid yourself of anger and hurt. Come be my mate. I'll help comfort. With wounds not healed, your hurt is deep. I'll kiss you gently, help you weep. Wash away demons from your past. Your future has a different past.
It's true. That's
When
absolutely true. Hatred, anger, uh, these are the most negative emotions a human being can have. You can be competitive, but you can't be jealous. You should admire the qualities of others. That's the only way to live. Remember, there's always somebody better than you. And therefore, you must live with that sense of humility that God has given you much more than you deserve. You could have been born in a family which had no means. Had my father not returned, just look at this way, that's fate too. Had my father not returned from Pakistan alive, my mother would have had 4 children. Me, she was pregnant with me 5. 2 of my father's younger brothers, and her father-in-law and mother-in-law, and no earning member in the family. Where would I have been then? It's fate that he came back, and we are here. We are here today. And it's all education. That's why I'm so passionate about it. He said, the one thing I'll give you is education. So we were the first family where all 4 of us were in the IS. My 2 elder brothers were in the IS. I, of course, refused to join. And my number 3 brother was in the Foreign Service. And this is at a time when nobody ever refused the IS or refused. And we were the first family. And that's only because of education. Nothing more. We didn't have any riches. We just believed in education. Because that's the only way to conquer the world. That's how. It is the conquests of knowledge that have made this world where it is. Not killing people on the street or these acts of violence that are going on. These are not conquests. These are acts of cowardice. These are acts of animals. Even animals don't kill like this, like human beings do nowadays.
Mr. Sibal, in addition to being an excellent author, poet, lyricist, you're also an extremely well-read man. And like you said, education is perhaps what takes you to a higher place in life. And it sort of helps you live life with morals and ethics which underscore your existence. In your poem, Global Meltdown, you write, the corporate world must take the lead. Seek wealth without avarice and greed. Dupe not holders of equity. The key word is integrity. Values, ethics must underscore the desire to acquire more. Revamp, reform, inspire, trust. Make sure the system is robust.
Absolutely right. And see, integrity in your thoughts is more important than anything else, right? And that will reflect integrity in your actions. But here there is so much double speak. You say something outside the world and you say something within India. You say something to the public and you do exactly the opposite, when it comes to action. So there is so much duplicity in our politics and in our everyday lives that we're never true to ourselves. We're not even honest with ourselves anymore. This is the problem. We've stopped introspecting and asking ourselves, why are we here and what for are we here? Is it to make money? No. And I think we've stopped asking those fundamental questions which will give you a direction as to which way your life should go. And you take up careers because it earns you more money, not realizing that money is not going to give you happiness. It's the joy of doing what you want to do that gives you happiness, not the check that you get. So if the day you stop enjoying doing what you're doing, you should leave it. Do something else.
Mr. Sibal, do you feel that somewhere along the line while you were serving the public, you did not get to spend as much time as you would have liked with yourself? Does public life take a toll?
That's been my regret all my life. I can't spend the time I want to with my grandchildren, with my children. But that's the way it is. I mean, that's not something that I can do anything about. I wish I could have more time, but there are so many other things to do which I think are close to my heart, which I wish to do. To help people, basically.
Speaking of fresh starts, Mr. Sibal, in your poem, Fresh Start, you write, geared up to start another year, The past can find the future here. The present has links with the past. Our future now we must recast. For our own sake, love others who, for their future, rely on you. What is at the forefront of your mind and your heart for the future ahead for India, Mr. Sibal?
See, I think that India needs a new narrative. I think the narrative that is present in India today is a very destructive narrative. That's my personal belief. I may be wrong. It's a narrative which will take us to an abyss, which will destroy our societal peace and tranquility. We're moving towards a path where we are creating divisions of the mind to such an extent that people start now doubting the motives of others. In other words, if you start doubting your neighbor's motive, you'll never be in peace. So I think it's time for a new narrative, a new political narrative, a new social and economic narrative. I mean, just look at the enormity of riches in the hands of 0.1% of the people of this country, and millions living in utter penury, utter poverty. You know, they can't even think of tomorrow as to what's going to happen to them tomorrow. And this hiatus is creating divisions that will take years and years to take care of. And there is no political system and no political party, I'm sorry to say, that is really thinking of this. There is no national narrative in this country. There's a political narrative. There's no national narrative.
Mr. Sibal, you mentioned earlier on in the conversation that you're in the evening of your life. I beg to differ. I think it's late morning at best. Speaking of the time of the day, Mr. Sibal, where do you see the morning for India rising tomorrow?
I don't see it in the near future, quite frankly. I think that we are living a life of, what should I say? I can't find the appropriate word. We refuse to look at the reality of India anymore. You know, the reality of India is that everything in India is captured by a few institutions, a few people. It's captured, completely captured. And freedom is not what is written, freedom that we talk about. You know, when we talk about freedom of speech, freedom of association, we were moving throughout the territory of India. There are no such freedoms in reality. What speech are we talking about? You sent every day there's a case against you for sedition for a person who speaks up. What freedom of movement are we talking about? What is the freedom of movement we're talking about? These migrant labor walk hundreds of miles, 1,000, 2,000 kilometers away to get work, to send money to their families so that they can live. That's freedom of movement. What freedom of association we can talking about? You can't even marry the person you want to marry. That's freedom of association. What are we talking about? What are these freedoms? They're just on paper. You can only be free if your mind is free of malice, of hatred, of envy. Then only can you be free.
Mr. Sibal, you often used to recite poems of Ashok Chakradhar.
Yes. I love this poet. I love his poetry.
Would you like to recite something for us today, sir?
Okay, I'll recite you two poems.
Please.
One is a love poem and one is what I see in India today. Let me recite you the love poem. It's called The Silence of Snowflakes. This is how it goes. Gentle snowflakes whisper to me, like wayward minds have lost their way. The eerie stillness of winter nights bear witness to their carefree flights. They sway in silence and adjust with ease, caress contours that no one sees. Merge as they fall with comfort lie. Their journey is a lullaby. I want you by my side adrift. You are for me sweet nature's gift. Wayward are ways, an antidote, where distance time is kept afloat. This fulsome lap allows me to, in nature's womb, get close to you. And as we sink within our world, like snowflakes lost, yet ghostly current. Then there is one which talks about the reality of India. Its title is Prejudice. Give me the space where I can breathe, secure that I am truly free. Don't look at me suspiciously, questioning my very rights to be. I was born with a predictable name, and that too was given to me. Don't look for answers I do not have, which you seem to want from me. Who will answer the questions that I often ask quite persistently? You think I might be one of them the moment you set eyes on me. My name, attire, the way I look, seem proof of my culpability. Such questions you must ask yourself, keeping your mind from bias free. If not, you have no right to ask all those questions so insistently. You make me feel unwanted in what for years has been home to me. My forefathers and all their dreams are buried here since centuries. Don't tear asunder my very being, destroying all that is dear to me. Don't take away what I cherish most. That is an intrinsic part of me. My ancestors too had shed their blood, sacrificed their future for me. There is no parting or ways together. We share an uncharted common destiny. If in our quest, I was always a part of you and you a part of me, within the expanse of your open mind, don't carve out some territories for me. Assign me not a separate space where you think I ought to be. And if you try to cast me thus, it means that you too are not free. If you truly are, don't be a slave to prejudices about me. The demons that we are looking for reside within both you and me. Let's find the demons within ourselves. Then alone we will make free. After which you will see yourself whenever you look at me.
Sir, that is a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful recital. I must request you, sir, कुछ हिंदी में तो सुनाइए.
हिंदी में अच्छा सुना देता हूँ. हिंदी में भी सुना देता हूँ. एक मिनट. क्या सुनना चाहते हो?
सर जो आपके दिल के पास हो.
चलिए फिर सुना देते हैं आपको. एक मिनट मुझे दीजिए.
My dadi used to write poetry in Urdu.
अच्छा.
She had a book that she penned down, but that's lost to time.
अच्छा यार इतनी लिखी हुई है मुझे अब याद. तो पहले बताता तो मैं हिंदी में भी.
अरे नहीं सर, आपको पढ़ने की क्या जरूरत है?
नहीं, मेरा मोबाइल ले लो. बताता हूँ. ये इस रास्ते से वापस नहीं लौटा कोई. इस रास्ते से वापस नहीं लौटा कोई. है खुश नसीब जो हंस के चला जाता है. है खुश नसीब जो हंस के चला जाता है. चंद लम्हों में उम्र गुजर जाती है. सोचते हैं कि सफर थोड़ा ही बाकी है. तमन्नाएं कुछ पूरी हुई, कुछ रह गई. इतनी तुझे बता क्यों जल्दबाजी है.
That's marvelous, sir. Thank you so very much for taking this evening to spend time with us today. On a parting note, I must ask you, your next book on poetry is being published next year?
Yeah, actually it's ready. It's with the publishers, but I complete 50 years in the Supreme Court this year. And so I'm celebrating that in September, for which I have written a book for young lawyers as to what they should do when they enter the profession. And this is really a kind of a guide, a script for them. That I'll be releasing in September when I complete 50 years at the Supreme Court. So I don't want to release 2 books in the same year. So the poetry book I'll release next year, but that's ready.
We'll look forward to both, sir. And I would, if we were doing this in a physical space, I would have requested you to sign my copy since I'm a fan. But I guess I'll just have to come over at a later point in time.
Please do. Please do. It'll be a pleasure. But thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Namaskar.
Thank you. Namaskar.